Admiral Kate Morrison stood at the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet flagship, staring at the holographic display that showed the latest reports from the outer colonies. The blue dots representing human settlements were disappearing one by one, replaced by red markers that meant only one thing: the Zephyrians had conquered another world. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from New Texas," Commander Jake Sullivan said from his station. His voice carried the weight of bad news that had become too common in recent months. Kate nodded without turning around. She had been expecting this call. New Texas was one of humanity's most important agricultural colonies, feeding millions of people across the outer rim. If it fell, the refugee crisis would become even worse. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Governor Paul Richards. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, and smoke could be seen rising behind him through the windows of his office. "Admiral Morrison, New Texas is under heavy attack. The Zephyrian fleet appeared 3 hours ago. We've lost contact with our orbital defense platforms, and their ground forces are advancing on the capital city." Kate felt her stomach tighten. The same story had played out on 7 other colonies in the past month. The aliens would arrive without warning, destroy the orbital defenses within hours, and then begin their systematic conquest of the planet. "Below, Governor, what's the status of your evacuation?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would not be good. "We're trying, Admiral, but they're jamming our communications. Most of our transport ships can't get off the ground. The ones that do make it to orbit are being destroyed by their fighters." Behind Governor Richards, an aide rushed up and whispered something in his ear. The governor's face went pale. "Admiral, they're demanding our surrender. They say if we give up now, they'll spare the civilian population." Kate closed her eyes for a moment. She had heard this before, too. The Zephyrians always offered mercy to those who surrendered immediately. Some colonies had taken the deal, and their populations had been relocated to labor camps on distant worlds. Others had fought to the end, and their cities had been reduced. "To Ash, Governor, the choice is yours to make. Earth cannot spare any ships to defend New Texas. Our fleet is already stretched too thin." It was a painful truth. When the war began 3 years ago, humanity had possessed nearly 200 warships. Now, after countless battles and defeats, only 47 remained operational. The Zephyrians, meanwhile, seemed to have an endless supply of vessels. The transmission cut to static, then went dead. Kate knew that New Texas had fallen, just like all the others. "Ma'am, we're also receiving reports from Kepler 442b, Jake said quietly. "The same situation. They're asking for immediate evacuation support." Kate turned to face her bridge crew. These men and women had served with her for years, and she could see the exhaustion in their eyes. They had fought battle after battle, watched colony after colony fall, and seen too many friends die. "How many refugee ships are currently heading toward Earth?" she asked. Lieutenant Amy Roberts, the communications officer, checked her console. 17 ships carrying approximately 50,000 civilians. They're reporting severe overcrowding and medical emergencies. Kate walked to the tactical display that showed the current positions of both human and Zephyrian forces. The enemy fleet was advancing steadily toward the inner solar system, leaving behind a trail of conquered worlds. "Jake, what's our current fleet strength?" 47 ships, Admiral. But 12 of them are in dry dock for repairs, and another 8 are escorting refugee convoys. That leaves us with 27 combat-ready vessels. Kate stared at the numbers. 27 ships against what intelligence estimated to be over 300 Zephyrian vessels. The math was simple and brutal. The Zephyrians had superior technology in almost every way. Their energy shields could deflect most human weapons, while their plasma cannons could slice through human armor like it was paper. Their ships were faster, more maneuverable, and could travel longer distances without refueling. "Admiral, incoming message from Earth Command," Amy announced. The screen displayed Admiral Frank Davis, the head of Earth's military forces. His office was busy with activity, and Kate could see the stress lines that had deepened around his eyes over the past year. "Kate, I need a realistic assessment of our situation. The President is asking for options. Kate looked around the bridge once more before answering. Frank, we're facing complete military defeat. The Zephyrians will reach the Sol system within 6 weeks at their current pace. We have fewer than 30 ships to defend Earth against a force 10 times our size. What about the new weapon systems Dr. Hayes is developing? Kate had heard about the classified research project. Dr. Lisa Hayes and her team were working on some kind of revolutionary technology based on captured Zephyrian equipment. But she had also heard that the project was behind schedule and completely untested. The weapons aren't ready, Frank. Even if they were, we don't have enough ships to carry them into battle. Admiral Davis was quiet for a long moment. Kate, I need you to understand something. If Earth falls, it's over. Not just for us, but for every human in the galaxy. The colonies that surrendered are being used as slave labor. The ones that fought are gone completely. I understand, sir. The President has authorized me to use any means necessary to defend Earth. That includes weapons and tactics that we've never considered before. Kate wondered what he meant by that, but she knew better than to ask over an open channel. After the transmission ended, Kate stood alone on the bridge for several minutes. Through the viewport she could see the distant stars that had once represented hope and opportunity for humanity. Now they seemed cold and hostile. Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the Kepler 442b system, Jake reported. Multiple ships requesting immediate assistance. Kate knew they couldn't help. Every ship they had was needed to defend Earth or escort refugees. She was about to give the standard reply when something caught her attention. Jake, bring up the long-range sensor readings. The tactical display showed the edge of the solar system, where automated sensor stations monitored space for incoming threats. There, at the very edge of detection range, were the distinctive energy signatures of Zephyrian ships. How many? Kate asked. Jake worked at his console, trying to get a clearer reading. It's hard to tell with the interference from the outer planets, but I'm reading at least 200 contacts, possibly more. Kate felt her heart sink. The main Zephyrian fleet was larger than they had estimated, and it was already approaching the solar system. She had hoped they would have more time to prepare defenses, but the enemy was moving faster than expected. Send a message to all human forces in the system. Tell them that the Zephyrian main fleet has been detected entering the outer solar system. Estimated arrival at Earth in 4 to 6 weeks. As Jake sent the message, Kate looked at the tactical display one more time. The red dots representing enemy ships seemed to fill the screen, while the few blue dots representing human forces looked pathetically small in comparison. She thought about the millions of people on Earth who were counting on her to protect them. She thought about the refugees fleeing from the outer colonies, and the brave defenders who had died trying to stop the alien advance. Kate Morrison had been a military officer for 20 years, and she had never faced a situation this hopeless. But she also knew that giving up was not an option. Humanity had survived ice ages, world wars, and plagues. They had spread across the galaxy and built a civilization among the stars. If this was to be their final battle, then they would make it count. Jake, signal the fleet. All ships are to begin immediate preparations for the defense of Earth. We're going to show these aliens what humans are made of. As her crew began carrying out orders, Kate continued to stare at the tactical display. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of detection, the enemy was coming. But she had a feeling that this war was about to take a turn that no one expected. Admiral Kate Morrison was reviewing casualty reports when her communications officer interrupted her with an urgent message. Amy Roberts looked confused as she turned from her console. Admiral, we're receiving a coded transmission on a frequency. That's supposed to be inactive. The encryption is military grade, but it's using old Earth defense codes from 2 years ago. Kate looked up from her datapad. That's impossible. Those codes were retired after the Battle of Titan. No one should be using them anymore. Ma'am, the message is addressed to you personally. It's requesting a private channel. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. The Battle of Titan had been one of humanity's worst defeats. They had lost 12 ships and over 3,000 crew. Members, including some of their best officers? The memory of that day still haunted her. Transfer the message to my private office, and Amy, not a word about this to anyone. Kate walked to her small office behind the bridge and activated the secure communication system. The screen flickered to life, showing static at first, then gradually clearing to reveal a face she recognized but had never expected to see again. "Hello, Kate. I know this must be quite a shock." Captain Alex Turner looked older than she remembered. His hair had more gray, and there were new lines around his eyes. But it was definitely him, the man who had supposedly died when his ship was destroyed during the retreat from Titan. "Alex, this is impossible. You're dead." "I saw the Phoenix get hit by plasma fire. There were no survivors." Alex smiled grimly. "That's what we wanted everyone to think." "Kate, I need you to listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you could change everything about this war." Kate sat down heavily in her chair. Alex Turner had been one of her closest friends and most trusted officers. If he was alive, then everything she thought she knew about the past 2 years was wrong. The Phoenix wasn't destroyed at Titan. We faked our death and went dark. For the past 2 years, we've been operating behind enemy lines under a classified mission called Operation Sleeper. That's impossible. There's no such operation in any of the files I have access to. Because it was authorized at the highest levels and kept secret from everyone, including most of the military command. Kate, we're not the only ones. There are 30 ships out here, all officially listed as destroyed or missing in action. Kate felt her world turning upside down. 30 ships would double their current fleet strength. If this was true, it could change the entire strategic situation. "Alex, I need proof. This could be a Zephyrian trick. They've used human voices before to lure our ships into traps." "I know you're skeptical. Do you remember the night before the Battle of Titan? We were in your quarters, playing cards and drinking that terrible coffee you love. You told me about your sister's wedding and how you wished you could be there. Instead of fighting a war," Kate's breath caught. That conversation had been completely private. No one else could have known about it. "Alex, if this is real, where have you been?" "What have you been doing?" "We've been hiding in the radiation fields near Jupiter. The electromagnetic interference from the planet masks our signatures from Zephyrian sensors. We've been studying their tactics, learning their weaknesses, and conducting small-scale raids on their supply lines." Kate tried to process this information. Jupiter's radiation belts were dangerous for human ships, but they would provide excellent cover from enemy detection. "Why didn't you contact us sooner? We could have used your help in the battles over the past year." "Because we were ordered to stay hidden until the final battle. High Command knew that conventional tactics wouldn't work against the Zephyrians. They're too advanced, too powerful. But they have weaknesses, Kate. We found them." Alex's image flickered slightly as the transmission was affected by space interference. "The Zephyrians are overconfident. They follow rigid battle plans and don't adapt well to unexpected situations. They rely too heavily on their technology and underestimate human creativity. We've been exploiting those weaknesses in our raids." "What kind of raids?" "Hit and run attacks on their supply convoys. We've destroyed 17 cargo ships and 4 escort vessels without them ever knowing what hit them. We've also been gathering intelligence on their fleet movements and command structure." Kate felt a spark of hope for the first time in months. If Alex was telling the truth, then humanity might have a chance after all. "Alex, I need to know about your fleet. What ships do you have? What's your operational status?" 30 vessels, all modified with experimental stealth systems. We have frigates, destroyers, and a few cruisers. The Phoenix is now our command ship. We've been maintaining radio silence and avoiding all contact with Earth forces to preserve our cover. Kate thought about the implications. A stealth fleet could potentially get close to the Zephyrian armada without being detected. But even 30 ships wouldn't be enough to defeat the enemy fleet in a direct confrontation. "Alex, even with your ships, we're still outnumbered 10-1. The Zephyrians have superior weapons and shielding. How can we possibly win?" "That's where the real secret comes in. We're not alone out here. There's a research team that's been working on new weapons based on captured Zephyrian technology. Dr. Lisa Hayes has been developing something that could level the playing field. Kate had heard rumors about Dr. Hayes and her classified research, but she didn't know the details. What kind of weapons? Something called resonance disruptors. They can destabilize Zephyrian energy shields by creating harmonic frequencies that interfere with their power systems. Without their shields, their ships are just as vulnerable as ours. This was the first genuinely good news Kate had heard in months. If Dr. Hayes had found a way to neutralize the Zephyrian shields, then human weapons might actually be effective against enemy ships. Alex, I need you to come to Earth immediately. We need to coordinate our strategies. I can't do that. Kate, if my ships are detected approaching Earth, it will compromise the entire operation. The Zephyrians have spies and monitoring stations throughout the solar system. They can't know we exist until the moment we attack. Kate understood the logic, but she hated the idea of fighting a battle without being able to coordinate properly. With her ally, then how do we work together? We need to use Earth's fleet as bait. Draw the Zephyrians into a position where they're vulnerable to a surprise attack. My ships will remain hidden until the critical moment, then strike at their command vessels and support ships. Kate realized that Alex was asking her to sacrifice her own fleet to create the opportunity for his surprise attack. It was a dangerous gamble that could result in the complete destruction of Earth's defenses. Alex, that's asking a lot. If your attack fails, Earth will be defenseless. If we don't try this, Earth will fall anyway. Kate, this is our only chance. The Zephyrians are expecting a conventional battle. They think they know everything about our capabilities. They have no idea that we have a hidden fleet. Kate looked at the tactical display on her office wall. The red dots representing enemy. Ships continued to advance toward Earth, while the few blue dots representing human forces looked pathetically small. What about Dr. Hayes? Is she part of this operation? She's been working with us for months. Her research station is hidden in the asteroid belt, and she's been installing the new weapons on our ships. But the technology is still experimental. We won't know if it works until we use it in actual combat. Kate felt the weight of the decision she was being asked to make. She could continue fighting the war the way they had been, accepting inevitable defeat, or she could trust Alex and gamble everything on a desperate plan. Alex, I need time to think about this. This is bigger than just a military decision. If we're wrong, humanity dies. I understand, Kate, but don't take too long. The Zephyrian fleet will be here in less than a month. We need to start preparing now if we're going to have any chance of success. The transmission ended, leaving Kate alone with her thoughts. Outside her office window, she could see the stars that had once represented hope and exploration for humanity. Now they seemed full of danger and uncertainty, but for the first time in months, Kate also felt something else. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance to win after all. Admiral Kate Morrison stared at the classified file on her desk for the third time in the past hour. The documents that had arrived through secret channels contained information that changed everything she thought she knew about the war. Operation Sleeper was real, and it was far more complex than Alex Turner had explained during their brief communication. The file contained detailed specifications for the hidden fleet stealth technology, tactical reports from their raids on Zephyrian, supply lines, and most importantly, the complete research data from Dr. Lisa Hayes' weapons development program. Kate had spent the entire night reading through the technical specifications, trying to understand how the new weapons worked. Commander Jake Sullivan entered her office carrying a cup of coffee and his own copy of the classified materials. His expression was grim as he sat down across from her desk. Admiral, I've been going through the tactical reports from Turner's fleet. These hit-and-run attacks they've been conducting are impressive, but they're also incredibly dangerous. They're operating with no backup, no support, and no way to call for help if something goes wrong. Kate nodded. She had come to the same conclusion. The hidden fleet had been taking enormous risks for 2 years, staying alive through skill and luck, but their luck might not hold much longer. Jake, what's your assessment of their combat effectiveness? On paper, they're formidable. 30 ships with advanced stealth systems and experienced crews. But they've been fighting a guerrilla war, not fleet battles. The kind of coordinated attack they're planning will require different tactics entirely. Kate stood up and walked to the window that looked out over Earth's orbital defense platforms. The massive weapons installations represented humanity's last line of defense, but she knew they wouldn't be enough to stop the Zephyrian fleet. The question is whether we can trust them to execute this plan. If Turner's fleet reveals itself too early, or if the new weapons don't work as expected, we lose everything. Jake set down his coffee cup and leaned forward. Admiral, there's something else. I've been analyzing the intelligence data from their raids. The Zephyrians are moving faster than we expected. Long-range sensors indicate they'll reach Earth in 3 weeks, not 4. Kate felt her stomach drop. 3 weeks was barely enough time to coordinate a defense, let alone execute a complex battle plan involving 2 separate fleets. Have you shared this information with Turner? Not yet. I wanted to discuss it with you first. If we're going to do this, we need to accelerate our timeline significantly. Kate returned to her desk and activated her secure communication system. Within minutes, she was connected to Captain Turner aboard the Phoenix, hidden somewhere in Jupiter's radiation fields. Alex, we have a problem. The Zephyrian fleet is moving faster than anticipated. We have 3 weeks at most before they reach Earth. Turner's face appeared on the screen, and Kate could see the concern in his eyes. Behind him, she could glimpse the bridge of the Phoenix, which looked different from standard Earth Defense Fleet vessels. The equipment appeared more advanced, with additional screens and control systems. That's not good news, Kate. We were counting on having more time to prepare, but we can adapt. The question is whether Dr. Hayes can finish installing the new weapons on all our ships. Speaking of Dr. Hayes, I need to speak with her directly. The technical specifications in your file raise some concerns about the weapon systems. Turner nodded. I'll arrange a 3-way communication. But Kate, you need to understand that Dr. Hayes has been working under enormous pressure. She's been essentially alone in her research station for months, working with a small team of volunteers. A few minutes later, a new face appeared on Kate's screen. Dr. Lisa Hayes looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But her eyes were sharp and focused as she studied Kate through the camera. Admiral Morrison, I've been following your fleet's activities through our intelligence network. I understand you have questions about the resonance disruptors. Kate had prepared a list of technical questions, but she decided to start with the most important one. Dr. Hayes, will these weapons actually work in combat? The specifications suggest they've never been tested against active Zephyrian shields. You're correct. We've been able to test the technology against captured shield generators, but we haven't had the opportunity to use them in actual battle. However, our simulations indicate an 85% probability of success. Kate felt a chill. 85% was good odds in most situations, but not when the survival of humanity depended on the outcome. What happens if they don't work? Dr. Hayes was quiet for a moment before answering. Then we're back to using conventional weapons against superior technology. The outcome would be the same as it has been in every previous battle. Turner's voice came through the speakers. Kate, I know the risks. We all do. But this is our only chance to change the course of the war. If we continue fighting the way we have been, we'll lose everything within a year. Kate looked at the tactical display on her wall. The red dots representing the Zephyrian fleet continued their relentless advance toward Earth, while the blue dots representing human forces remained pitifully small. Dr. Hayes, how many ships can you equip with the new weapons? I've already installed the systems on 15 of Captain Turner's ships. The remaining 15 will be completed within 2 weeks. But Admiral, there's something else you need to know. The resonance disruptors require enormous amounts of power. Each ship can only fire them 3 times before the systems overload. This was new information that hadn't been in the files. Kate realized that even if the weapons worked perfectly, the hidden fleet would have very limited ammunition. 3 shots per ship. That's 90 total shots for the entire fleet, against over 300 enemy vessels. Each shot can potentially disable multiple ships if they're positioned correctly, Dr. Hayes explained. The resonance effect spreads outward from the point of impact, affecting any ships within a certain radius. But the positioning has to be perfect. Kate was beginning to understand the complexity of the plan. It wasn't just about having better weapons. It was about using those weapons with surgical precision against specific targets at exactly the right moment. Alex, walk me through the tactical plan. How do we make this work? Turner's expression became more serious. The key is coordination. Your fleet needs to engage the Zephyrians in a way that draws them into a tight formation. We've studied their battle tactics extensively, and they always move their command ships to the center of their formation, surrounded by escort vessels. And then your fleet attacks the command ships? Exactly. We disable their command and control capabilities first, then target their support vessels. Without central coordination, the Zephyrian fleet will be less effective, even if they still outnumber us. Kate could see the logic in the plan, but she also saw the enormous risks. If Turner's fleet was detected before they could launch their surprise attack, the entire plan would fail. Alex, what about communication during the battle? How do we coordinate our attacks without revealing your position? We've developed a system of coded signals that look like normal tactical communications. Your fleet will send us targeting information, disguised as routine status reports. We'll remain silent until the moment of attack. Dr. Hayes interrupted the conversation. Admiral, there's one more thing. The weapons installations on Captain Turner's ships are still experimental. We don't know how they'll perform under combat stress. There's a small chance that the systems could fail catastrophically. Kate didn't like the sound of that. What kind of failure? Worst case scenario, the power overload could destroy the ship firing the weapon. We've built in as many safety systems as possible, but the technology is still unproven. Kate looked at both faces on her screen. These people were asking her to bet everything on an untested plan using experimental weapons. But they were also offering humanity its only real chance for survival. I need to discuss this with my senior staff. But first I want to know about your crews. Are they prepared for this kind of mission? Turner smiled for the first time during the conversation. Kate, these are volunteers who agreed to be declared dead for the chance to fight this war differently. They've been preparing for this moment for 2 years. They're ready. What about morale? It must be difficult being cut off from Earth and their families. It hasn't been easy, but they understand what's at stake. Every person on these ships knows that this mission is humanity's last hope. That's powerful motivation. Kate made her decision. Alex, Dr. Hayes, I'm going to authorize this operation. But I want daily status reports from both of you. And I want backup plans in case something goes wrong. Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down. After the communication ended, Kate sat alone in her office, staring at the tactical display. In 3 weeks, the largest battle in human history would begin. The outcome would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or disappeared forever into slavery. She thought about the thousands of people serving under her command, and the millions more on Earth who were counting on her to protect them. The weight of responsibility was enormous, but she also felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope, maybe, just maybe. The massive Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system like a swarm of deadly insects. Admiral Kate Morrison watched the tactical display as hundreds of red dots appeared on her screen, each one representing an enemy warship capable of destroying entire human colonies. Enemy fleet count is confirmed at 312 vessels, Commander Jake Sullivan reported from his station. They're maintaining standard formation with their command ships in the center protected by escort vessels. Kate nodded. Grimly, the Zephyrian fleet was even larger than their worst estimates, but she also noticed something that gave her hope. The enemy ships were arranged exactly as Captain Turner had predicted, following their rigid tactical doctrine without any creative variations. Signal all Earth Defense Fleet vessels. Begin Phase 1 of the defense plan. All ships move to intercept positions around Earth's orbital defense platforms. The 27 remaining human warships began moving into position, their crews knowing that they were about to face impossible odds. Kate had briefed her senior officers on the basic plan, but she couldn't tell them about the hidden fleet without risking security leaks. On the main screen, the image of War Admiral Thexkar appeared. The Zephyrian commander was tall and imposing, with pale blue skin and golden eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. His uniform was decorated with medals from dozens of conquered worlds. Humans of Earth, I am War Admiral Thexkar of the Zephyrian Empire. You have fought bravely, but your resistance is futile. Surrender now, and your population will be spared. Continue to resist, and your world will be reduced to ash. Kate stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. This is Admiral Kate Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. We reject your terms. If you want Earth, you'll have to take it by force. Thexkar's expression didn't change, but Kate could see something like respect in his golden eyes. So be it. Your courage is admirable, but it will not save you. Begin the attack. The Zephyrian fleet began moving toward Earth in perfect formation. Their plasma cannons charged with deadly energy, while their energy shields shimmered like soap bubbles around each ship. Kate watched as the enemy approached, knowing that everything depended on her ability to make them follow their predictable tactics. All ships engage at maximum range. Target their forward escorts but maintain defensive positions around the orbital platforms. The first exchange of fire lit up space with brilliant flashes of light. Human kinetic weapons hammered against Zephyrian shields, while alien plasma beams sliced through human armor. Within minutes, Kate had lost 2 destroyers, while the enemy fleet continued advancing without any apparent damage. Admiral, the orbital defense platforms are requesting permission to fire, Jake reported. Not yet. We need to draw them closer. Kate was following the plan that she and Turner had developed. The Earth Defense Fleet had to appear desperate but not completely helpless. They needed to make the Zephyrians confident enough to move their command ships forward, but not so confident that they would change their tactics, hidden in the radiation. Fields near Jupiter, Captain Alex Turner watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The Phoenix and 29 other stealth ships waited in complete silence, their crews tense and ready for action. The Earth fleet is taking heavy losses, reported Lieutenant Commander Amy Roberts, Turner's tactical officer. They've lost 6 ships already. Turner felt his stomach tighten as he watched his former colleagues die. Each destroyed ship represented hundreds of human lives, people he had served with and cared about. But he also knew that their sacrifice was necessary for the plan to work. Are the Zephyrians moving as predicted? He asked. Yes, sir. Their command ships are advancing toward the center of the formation, just as our intelligence suggested they would. On the bridge of the Phoenix, the crew members were veterans of dozens of secret raids against Zephyrian supply lines. They had learned to fight differently than the regular fleet, using stealth and surprise instead of direct confrontation. But this battle would be different from anything they had attempted before. Major Chris Parker, the fleet's senior tactical coordinator, was monitoring communications from all 30 hidden ships. All vessels report ready for attack. The resonance disruptors are charged and targeting systems are locked on enemy command ships. Turner nodded. Maintain position. We attack when Admiral Morrison gives the signal. Back at Earth, the battle was becoming increasingly desperate. The human fleet was down to 18 ships, while the Zephyrian advance continued relentlessly. Kate watched as another destroyer exploded in a ball of fire, its crew of 300 lost in an instant. Admiral, we're receiving emergency signals from the surface. The Zephyrian ground assault ships are beginning to separate from the main fleet, Jake reported. This was the moment Kate had been waiting for. According to their intelligence, the Zephyrians always deployed ground forces once they achieved orbital superiority. The separation of the assault ships would leave their main fleet temporarily vulnerable. Activate the orbital defense platforms. Full power to all weapons. Earth's massive defense platforms opened fire simultaneously, sending streams of plasma and kinetic projectiles toward the Zephyrian fleet. The concentrated firepower was impressive, but it barely scratched the enemy's shields. War Admiral Vexcar appeared on the screen again, his expression now showing mild irritation. "Your weapons are ineffective against our shields, Admiral Morrison. Why do you continue this pointless resistance?" Kate was buying time, waiting for the perfect moment to spring their trap. "Because we're human and we don't know how to quit." "Then you will die with honor, which is more than most species can claim." The Zephyrian fleet moved closer to Earth, their command ships now positioned exactly where Turner needed them. Kate could see that the enemy formation was tight and compact, with the most important vessels clustered together for mutual protection. She sent a coded message that looked like a routine status report, but actually contained the attack coordinates for Turner's fleet. "All Earth defense vessels, report current ammunition status and damage assessment." Hidden near Jupiter, Turner received the coded message and quickly decoded it. "Signal received. All ships, prepare for attack. Remember, we only get one chance." At this, the 30 stealth ships began moving out of Jupiter's radiation shadow, their advanced cloaking systems keeping them invisible to Zephyrian sensors. They moved silently through space, positioning themselves for a coordinated strike against the enemy command ships. Dr. Lisa Hayes monitored the weapon systems from her research station in the asteroid belt. The resonance disruptors had never been tested in actual combat, and she felt the weight of responsibility for their untested technology. If the weapons failed, humanity would lose its last hope for victory. "All weapon systems show green lights," she reported to Turner over there. "Secure channel. The disruptors are fully charged and ready to fire." Turner looked at his tactical display one more time. The Zephyrian fleet was in perfect position, their command ships surrounded by escort vessels in a tight defensive formation. It was exactly what they had hoped for. "This is Captain Turner to all Sleeper Fleet vessels. In 30 seconds, we reveal ourselves to the enemy. Remember your training, trust your equipment, and fight for every human in the galaxy." The countdown began. Kate Morrison watched her remaining ships continue their desperate defense, knowing that in seconds everything would change. The Zephyrian fleet pressed forward, confident in their superiority and unaware of the danger approaching from behind. 10 seconds to attack," Turner announced. The hidden fleet dropped their stealth systems simultaneously, appearing on sensors like ghosts, materializing out of empty space. For a moment, both fleets were frozen in surprise as 30 human ships suddenly appeared in the middle of the Zephyrian formation. "All ships, fire at will," Turner commanded. The resonance disruptors fired in perfect synchronization, sending waves of harmonic energy toward the enemy command ships. The experimental weapons created visible distortions in space as they struck their targets, and for a moment nothing seemed to happen. Then the Zephyrian shields began to flicker and collapse. War Admiral Vexcar stared at his tactical display in shock as his fleet's energy shields failed one by one. "Impossible! Where did those ships come from?" Kate Morrison smiled grimly as she watched the enemy fleet struggle to respond to the surprise attack. "Alex, you magnificent bastard, you actually did it." The battle for Earth had taken a dramatic turn, but Kate knew that the real fighting was just beginning. The hidden fleet had revealed itself, and now both sides would fight with everything they had for the fate of humanity. The space around Earth erupted into chaos as the Zephyrian fleet struggled to respond to the sudden appearance of 30 human ships in their midst. War Admiral Vexcar watched in horror as his command ship's shields flickered and died, leaving him vulnerable for the first time in his military career. "Impossible!" Vexcar shouted at his tactical officer. "How did they penetrate our sensor network? Where did these ships come from?" His officer's hands moved frantically over the control panel. "Unknown, War Admiral. The ships appeared without warning. Our shields are failing across the fleet. Whatever weapons they're using, we have no defense against them." Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, watching as his fleet's surprise attack devastated the Zephyrian command structure. The resonance disruptors had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. Dozens of enemy ships were now defenseless, their energy shields completely disabled. All ships, target the command vessels first, then the heavy cruisers, Turner ordered. We need to destroy their ability to coordinate before they can adapt to our attack. The hidden fleet moved with practiced precision through the enemy formation. Lieutenant Commander Amy Roberts coordinated the attack from the Phoenix, while Major Chris Parker directed the other ships toward their assigned targets. These crews had trained for this moment for 2 years, and their experience showed in every maneuver. Admiral Kate Morrison watched from Earth as the tide of battle suddenly shifted. Her remaining ships, which had been fighting a desperate defensive action moments before, now found themselves facing confused and vulnerable enemies. All Earth Defense Fleet vessels advance and engage, Kate commanded. Target any ship with failed shields. Show them what human weapons can do when the playing field is level. The combined human fleet pressed their advantage ruthlessly. Without their energy shields, the Zephyrian ships were as fragile as the human vessels they had been destroying with ease. Plasma cannons and kinetic weapons that had been useless minutes before now tore through alien armor like it was made of paper, but the Zephyrians were not helpless. War Admiral Vexcar was a veteran of hundreds of battles, and he quickly began issuing new orders to salvage the situation. All ships with functioning shields form a protective screen around the damaged vessels. Redirect power from non-essential systems to restore shield generators. And find me those human ships. The alien fleet began to reorganize, their superior numbers still giving them a significant advantage. Several Zephyrian vessels managed to get their shields back online, while others moved to protect their damaged comrades. Captain Turner realized that his fleet's window of opportunity was closing rapidly. The resonance disruptors could only be fired 3 times per ship, and they had already used their first shot. Every subsequent shot had to count. Amy, what's the status on shield regeneration among the enemy fleet? Approximately 60% of their ships still have failed shields, but that number is dropping quickly. Their engineering teams are working to restore power? Turner made a quick decision. All ships, prepare for second volley. Target the vessels that are trying to restore their shields. We can't let them recover. The hidden fleet fired their second round of resonance disruptors, this time targeting the Zephyrian ships that were closest to restoring their defenses. The harmonic waves spread through space, causing more shields to flicker and fail just as they were coming back online. Dr. Lisa Hayes monitored the weapon's performance from her research station, her heart pounding as she watched her creations perform in actual combat. The disruptors were working exactly as her simulations had predicted, but she also knew that each shot was bringing them closer to total system failure. Captain Turner, this is Dr. Hayes, she transmitted on their secure channel. The weapon systems are performing within normal parameters, but I'm detecting stress fractures in the harmonic generators. You may only get one more shot before the systems overload. Turner acknowledged the warning. One more shot meant 30 more chances to disable enemy shields, but after that, his fleet would be fighting with conventional weapons against a still superior enemy force. War Admiral Vexcar was becoming increasingly frustrated as his tactical advantages continued to disappear. His fleet's superior technology meant nothing if they couldn't maintain their energy shields, and these mysterious human weapons seemed designed specifically to counter Zephyrian defenses. Tactical analysis, he demanded. How are they doing this? His science officer looked up from her instruments with a confused expression. War Admiral, the weapon signatures suggest they are using our own shield technology against us. The harmonic frequencies are perfectly calibrated to disrupt our power systems. Vexcar felt a chill of understanding. They've been studying us. These attacks on our supply lines weren't random raids. They were intelligence-gathering missions. The realization that humans had been secretly preparing for this battle filled the Zephyrian commander with both respect and anger, his species. had conquered dozens of worlds, but no enemy had ever shown this level of strategic planning and patience. All ships ignore the Earth Defense Fleet, Dexkar ordered. Focus all firepower on the ships that appeared from hiding. They are the real threat. The Zephyrian fleet began concentrating their attacks on Turner's ships, recognizing them as the greater danger. The hidden fleet found themselves under intense fire as hundreds of plasma cannons targeted their positions. Phoenix taking heavy damage, Amy reported as the ship shook under enemy fire. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4 were losing atmosphere. Turner gripped his command chair as another plasma blast struck their ship. Without the element of surprise, his fleet was just as vulnerable as any other human vessels. But they had one advantage. They had been fighting this kind of desperate battle for 2 years. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Use the debris field from destroyed enemy ships as cover. And prepare for the final volley of disruptors. The hidden fleet scattered throughout the battlefield, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the concentrated enemy fire. Several ships were severely damaged, but they continued fighting with the determination of people who knew they were humanity's last hope. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold, realizing that this was the critical moment. If Turner's fleet could deliver one more devastating blow to the enemy shields, the combined human forces might be able to win. But if they failed, both fleets would be destroyed. Jake, redirect all power from our damaged ships to the vessels that can still fight, she ordered. We need to support Turner's attack. The Earth Defense Fleet moved closer to the Zephyrian formation, drawing enemy fire away from the hidden ships. It was a desperate gambit that would cost them more casualties. But it was necessary to give Turner the time he needed. Captain Turner watched his tactical display as his ships maneuvered into position for their final attack. Several of his vessels had been destroyed and others were barely functional, but the remaining ships were ready to fire their last shot. This is it, Turner announced to his fleet. Everything we've worked for comes down to this moment. Target their command ship and the heavy cruisers around it. Make these shots count. The hidden fleet fired their final volley of resonance disruptors, concentrating all their remaining firepower on the heart of the Zephyrian formation. The harmonic waves struck War Admiral Dexkar's command ship directly, causing its massive shields to collapse in a cascade of sparks and energy discharge. Direct hit on the enemy flagship, Amy reported. Their shields are down and we're detecting massive system failures throughout their command structure. Turner didn't hesitate. All ships, conventional weapons. Target the command ship, take it down now. Every human vessel in the battle concentrated their fire on the exposed Zephyrian flagship. Plasma cannons, kinetic rounds, and missile salvos converged on the alien command ship, overwhelming its armor and internal systems. Within seconds, the massive vessel erupted in a brilliant explosion that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. War Admiral Dexkar died instantly in the explosion, along with his entire command staff. The Zephyrian fleet, suddenly leaderless and demoralized, began to lose cohesion. Without central coordination, individual captains started making their own decisions about whether to continue the fight. Kate Morrison seized the moment. All human ships, general advance. Press the attack while they're in disarray. The combined Earth Defense Fleet and Hidden Fleet charged forward, striking at the confused and scattered enemy vessels. Without their shields and command structure, the Zephyrians found themselves fighting a battle they were no longer equipped to win. One by one, enemy ships began to retreat from the battlefield. Some tried to fight their way out, while others simply fled as fast as their engines could carry them. Within an hour, the massive Zephyrian fleet that had seemed unstoppable was in full retreat, leaving behind wreckage and the bodies of their comrades. Captain Turner stood on the damaged bridge of the Phoenix, hardly believing that they had actually won. After 2 years of hiding and planning, humanity had achieved the impossible. Kate, this is Alex. The enemy fleet is retreating. Earth is safe. Admiral Morrison felt tears of relief streaming down her face as she watched the red dots disappear from her tactical display. Against all odds, humanity had survived.